Good morning or good afternoon or good evening, wherever you are in the world. Talent Finders would like to welcome naturopathic doctor and acupuncturist Jen Clemons. So welcome, Jen.
Hi, Karen. Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So I'd like to firstly congratulate you on all your achievements. Can you share with us how your entrepreneurial and health journey began?
Yes, I grew up in a medical family. So as a very young child with a doctor dad and a nurse mom, and my dad worked in the emergency room and pediatrics. And so we were often talking about medicine, and I got very curious early. And then, as is the nature of kids and teenagers, I started asking other questions also about herbal medicine. So I live out in California, Northern California, and there's this wonderful plant called usnea that grows on the trees. It looks like a Spanish moss. It's a little different, a lichen, and I would pick it up and ask them, what's this for, or what's this do? And they didn't know. And somewhere in high school, I ended up at a health food store. I had a sore throat. I didn't want antibiotics again. And someone sold me, oh, try this tincture. So I learned about tinctures and alcohol extract of usnea. And for the record, it's super strong, and I don't think I would ever give it to someone plain like I got it, but it was very effective. I was gargling with it. It's incredibly strong, and it helped clear the infection or whatever was going on. And from there, I just started to get more and more interested and curious about natural medicine. And really, when we like traditional medicine and historical medicine goes so much farther back than 50 years or 100 years. And I just started really getting interested in that natural wisdom and longer standing medicine. So I thought I was going the trajectory of Western med, and took those prereqs, took those courses, applied into school, didn't get in the first time, which is pretty common. As I was gearing up to apply again, someone said, have you checked out naturopathic school? And the way that I'd grown up, I hadn't been to a chiropractor. I didn't really know. And when I looked at the curriculum for the school, it was the curriculum I had daydreamed about. So all the basic sciences, and also, so biology and anatomy, physiology, and years of nutrition, which is different than Western medicine. Western medicine maybe gets, I don't even know if it's a year, honestly. They get weeks of it. So years of nutrition, Western botanical herbalism. And then when I started school, I realized not only was there the naturopathic medical program, they also had a Chinese medicine program. And I was 25 at the time I started school. When I was 15, I had said to my parents, I think my medicine is a blend of Eastern and Western, and, it's somewhere in there. But I was basically speaking an unfamiliar language, and they didn't know, and they weren't encouraging because they just didn't know better. So then I walk into this wonderful it's the oldest school building in Portland, this brick building. And I realized it was like Hogwarts, I realized here's this place that has what I've been wanting to learn about so much. So the naturopathic and the really like old school nature cure medicine, a lot of which we credit for European nature cure and those teachers. And then the Chinese medicine and Asian medicine studies, which I think is more the older original medicine, right? That European nature cure probably evolved out of or added to. And it blew open in this wonderful way, so much more information about how the body works and how we can help the body work better. And so ever since then, I've just been learning. Now
That's amazing.
Oh, it's so fun. There's so much to learn also. Lately, mitochondria and the microbiome, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, and it's ever evolving. So your speciality as a naturopath and acupuncturist. So can you explain to our audience, for those who don't know more about it, what you do and what differentiates you from others in your industry?
Yes, the approach I take, naturopathic medicine has these 6 tenets, and I love all of them. So teaching, doctor as teacher, a really strong foundational one. And so I'm often really trying to teach my patients about what's going on, rather than the format of like a pill for an ill, or here's your diagnosis, go do this. I want them to understand how it's connected. So I've had other doctor friends and colleagues let me know that I get more in the weeds with people, but I really want to hear people's stories. And I also really want to help put it in back in their hands. And so often this means trying to connect dots. My special favorites that I often am always landing back is the mind-body connection and also the gut-brain connection. These absolutely go together.
Yes. And the gut is so important. So important.
Yes, absolutely. For health, for immune, this past year especially, we've seen even more evidence of how gut health is integral to immune health. And if you don't have a healthy gut, or if things are off, you're not going to feel clear in your mind. You're not going to have the optimal building materials to repair your immune system, repair your body, and to stay healthier. So the education is a huge part. And then when people come in and they're on my table and we're doing the acupuncture, I also do cranial work and hands-on work. And so the focus is really getting this, it's called the parasympathetic, this rest and digest, which is really missing in our culture. So really helping people just get a moment of calm, or when I'm calling people back for a follow-up, I'll say it's time for some TLC, right?
Yes, of course.
Yes, some tender loving care, and we forget, or we get too busy, or we only come in when the car's making a funny noise, right? But this tending of our nervous system really directly impacts our health and our physical system. So I love educating and trying to connect that for people. And then I often get referrals for kind of the odd and peculiar cases. So they've gone to other doctors or tried different things, or often they've come from Western and they say, oh, my doctor said my labs look fine. I don't feel fine. And that's when I say, well, tell me more about what doesn't feel fine. And we'll do a review of systems, and we'll really listen to them. And I think that's a real distinction. Many naturopathic doctors practice this way, but current medical practice, there's not the time to listen. And there's medicine just in listening to someone's story, or I'll say, how do you think you got here? What do you think needs help? And that rapport, I think, and connection with people, that in itself can be so healing.
Absolutely. So that leads me to COVID-19, which has obviously turned our worlds upside down and inside out, but it has also amplified health and illness. So I want to talk about when one gets sick and why is it better to delay on some traditional methods of medicine, and what is it that you suggest through the way you treat your clients, and why natural immunity is so important, and can you share with us why it's so important?
Yes, and it's a sticky topic, so I want to be cautious. This is not meant to diagnose or treat, but I do think there's so much information that can really help people be less afraid at the beginning. And I think there's some really important key points that are also coming up here again, as we're hitting the third wave, the fourth wave. So one reminder, and this natural immunity is a blocked hashtag on Instagram. You can't tag it. It has a warning that says this may be misinformation, which is wild because depending on your views of evolution, it's been at least thousands of years, if not tens of thousands of years, that natural immunity, this exposure, recovery, cataloging has gotten us here. And it didn't stop working last year. That just doesn't even make sense. So reminding people about, prevention is, I think, missing in the literature and in the news. And I really wish we could talk about, for instance, before you ever even get sick, and that's the foundations I love to talk about: the movement, exercise, food choices. A big part of it is the sugar balance and or the, stress imbalance in the body. So going into any illness, you can really prepare ahead if you're being intentional to be as vital as possible. So a lot of the practices I recommend for early infection and for recovery are the prevention steps. So, if you have access to a sauna or getting the temperature up, I'm a little more wimpy about getting the temperature cold, but I do finish my showers with cold. So this temperature extreme up and down helps improve vitality. Limiting sugar, really focusing on rest and sleep. These are all things that if you do them ahead of time, you'll be more prepared and you'll have more reserves. So that's the prevention part. So important. And also to be accepting, right? We can't hide or avoid things forever. That's just not how it works, especially microscopic things that travel all around. We are surrounded by and covered by bacteria and viruses. And in fact, we depend on them for our whole health. So we want to be in synergy instead of separation. So then the preparedness part, and I was actually just working on my little kit. So I got all my things together and I encourage people to be prepared ahead of time. So I have my liposomal vitamin C, liposomal fat linked so it's easier to absorb, and my zinc and D and other medications, my pulse oximeter, all these things are together in a box in case, so that we can be prepared ahead of time. So we're not scrambling or panicking. And so we can start right away if, with the protocol that we're going to take things. So that's another reminder, is at the outset of any illness, feeling funky, or you'd mentioned just coming back after travel. I did an East Coast trip and it was 2 overnight flights. And I don't know if I caught a bug or not, but I definitely felt wiped out. So then I just start right in on getting more rest, having soup, taking my vitamins, and paying attention at the outset. We have been conditioned to take a fever reliever, in the US, it's a Tamiflu, which will reduce symptoms. But, I often joke that Tamiflu was invented by viruses, because if you take it, you don't feel sick, you go to work and you spread the virus, right?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
it's it's a like reference to Michael Pollan and, plants and bugs training us. Well, it's actually more effective, and we have to prepare and plan for this and change our cultural acceptance of this, to take that wellness day early, or even take that sick day right at the beginning. Don't push through. And I think that's one of the distinctions right now, is people are trying to push through and they're taking fever relievers and having more coffee and ignoring it when it's kind of a low buzz. And then it weakens the system. And so as things kind of escalate, we're not as prepared to meet it. What if instead we rested, took a hot bath, kind of cultivated that fever? And this is an old European, nature cure. They'd wrap you up in all the blankets, right? And put you out in the fresh air and let the body do its own processes, because those initial steps that I complain about, also having a fever, feeling achy, feeling fatigued, it's actually this dynamic response in the body. They're called cytokines. Your body's communicating with all the different cells and coordinating a response that continues, over the week. So for instance, there's cytokines like tumor necrosis factor that gets secreted, and different ones that are going to cause a fever. And so then it puts the body on a house cleaning. And if you use that opportunity well, instead of suppressing it, you can really optimize health, because we need to flex our immune muscles. I'm seeing a declining vitality across the board, older and younger, because we just keep trying to avoid being sick at all. And instead, preparing ahead of time, and then having your steps and your tools for the time of. And then, especially right now with COVID, you have to pay attention at 1 week in, or definitely by the second week if it hasn't been cleared. So some people, they seem to do pretty fine. Other people, it might be at that second week that we start to see the system kind of decompensating, and you do go ahead and get outside help, right? So ask for help when you need it. But if we can stay ahead of things and prepare, I think it could really
it's far better.
Yes. If you look at, you can find these statistics, CDC has them, different places have them. Who's really most at risk is the people who are out of shape and whose blood sugars aren't good.
Yeah.
And those are things we can change. So there's a story that anyone's at risk, but if you really look at who it's affecting, we can work backwards, and we can start talking to people about taking a walk every day, getting out and moving, pulling kids off screens, getting them outside playing. Oh, it just can make such a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about the health industry, because obviously it's highly competitive, and it's also very oversaturated, including the food industry. With so much of our food that we consume, it can really be overwhelming. And really healthy foods or organic foods are very costly for many. So what advice do you give when looking to buy food and beverages, and what do you recommend people look for and the right places to buy healthy food?
Right. And this one also can be a loaded topic because there's even kind of political implications about where the subsidies go, right? And so what food is made cheaper or more available may be inaccurate, right? It has a hidden cost
Yes.
if it's going to cause illness later. So this one gets really tricky. I'm very privileged where I live. Marin County was one of the first places to do the like organic farming and the CSA and the farmers market. So I want to be sensitive. Not everybody has access to that. And that we talk about like food deserts in the US. And I saw that in Pennsylvania. You had to drive an hour to get to Walmart to buy your groceries. But I couldn't help but notice all the green fields and lawns that we were going past, right?
Yeah.
So what if there was a shift to local agriculture, growing your own veggies, people sharing? I've seen this in Detroit, Michigan. They take these empty lots and turn them into a community garden. That's my dream for the future. So that's a big, ambitious dream.
Yes.
Is a return to people growing their own food, networking with neighbors, having that collaboration. Right now, today, what can you do? Well, Environmental Working Group has the Dirty Dozen and the Clean 13. So it's ewg.org. And you can look at which foods it might be okay to buy conventional. They might not need as much pesticides, or you can peel them. So that's one way, is just to kind of balance. It doesn't all have to be organic, which is definitely more expensive in the upfront cost. And then a lot of it is just trimming out, they often say like the stuff in the middle of the grocery store, that processed food, like if it has a shelf life, it's not going to be nutritious.
No, it's not.
It really needs to be a small part of our dietary intake. I heard this really fascinating rock to rot theory that I love to tell patients about. If you put it outside or put it in the fridge and it just stays like a rock, it never rots, it's not vital. Like if bugs won't eat it, don't eat it.
It's the same as cereals that sit in boxes for months.
It's really not, the moths might get in, but if it's not vital enough for nature to want to eat it or break it down, like margarine, you could put margarine out and it will never mold. That's not a vital food. So really trying to pare it down, and really tough one. And people have said this, literally this one woman, I don't know how it got in my shopping cart. I said, well, you're going to have to talk to yourself at that point, because once it's in the house, it's very hard to resist. And so it's really being really intentional. I also think it's really important to recognize how much of these foods are comfort foods. And is there another way I can comfort myself without eating this box of processed non-food? And that takes education. So trying to talk to people about that. And then the accessibility part, I got my mind blown. I think it was Hood Feminism was a book in a racial studies class, and talking about how sometimes that soda or boxed juice was cleaner than the water that would be available. And
I think that's
access is so limited, and it's horrifying. The Native American populations in the US right now are getting devastated by COVID. And one huge factor is they don't have running water. It's incredibly wrong, and could make a difference if you have running water or not, to wash your hands, to reduce. So I'm wondering a little bit, sorry. The big things are clean water sources, being intentional and resourceful about what you do bring into the house. And then it really speaks to a larger issue that I'm not sure how to solve, but for starters, at least naming it. Why are we subsidizing the foods that make people sick? Why aren't we supporting access to foods that help people be healthier? And what can we do about it locally and then larger?
Yeah, absolutely.
So important.
And even now, like sometimes I go into like a nursery, like a plant nursery, and they actually have created for people who live in smaller, more confined spaces, these like smaller kind of box structures where people can grow their own lettuce or their own tomatoes. So I do see in some parts, but again, it's like you say, it's limited access. Not everybody has those types of things in their communities. So
Right. Not everybody even has a patio,
exactly.
but we can concentrate it. So growing the lettuce, or I would even suggest, what if they grew a pot of thyme or rosemary, and then you able to pinch off some of that. I've been drinking rosemary tea lately, peppermint rosemary tea. It's wonderful. It's highly medicinal. We think about it like a seasoning for lamb or potatoes, but it's actually, you can look it up. It's wonderful.
And they also say pine tea as well. Is it pine?
Yes, I've been doing pine, rosemary, and peppermint just from my neighborhood. So I remember walking with a friend years ago, and she knew that they had planted decorative chard at the bank. So she would kind of just sneak by the bank and grab some chard. What if we just had rosemary on the corners? Or, you know, it's like a concentrated lettuce, right?
It would almost be great to have like places where people could actually go, you know, like sort of community-based things where people could go. So maybe they pay a very small amount. So I'll give example, like when I was in Ibiza, there's a lot of farms, like not, you know, in the main part of Ibiza, but more like going out. And a friend of mine lives on one of the farms, and she said, come, let's go buy veggies. So we went to this farm, and I don't know, you pay like 10 euros, and I don't know whether they just charge you per weight or whatever, but it was really amazing, and all like fresh veggies and everything, and you just got it for like 10 euros. So there are, you know, I'm just thinking if people were looking to start doing this in their communities, because it's very expensive to go to these organic markets, and those are also very rare and few and far between. So it would be great if there was some kind of community structure or some place that people could go.
Absolutely. And to help it be accessible and to help it be less daunting, because I'll often talk to people about it, and when they're just starting out, any green thing looks like a poison. Well, the truth is, you know, I'm looking out my window right now. From what I can just see, I don't think there's any overt poisons. I know that if I walk down by the creek, there's poison hemlock, but besides that, most things actually are safe. And that's a whole flip from, oh my gosh, everything could be a poison or a risk. So helping people feel more comfortable with it, and then helping educate people for how easy it can be. I mean, literally a sprig, little like a 1-inch tip of the rosemary, and putting it in a teacup, actually, it has amazing potential benefit. It seems so simple, but it really could be more accessible. So that's my big daydream, you know, is what if people were able to feel more comfortable? What if people could collaborate more? And like I said, in Detroit, when they're taking over these abandoned lots and starting a garden there, the medicine potency is so much more than just the vegetables, right? It's community connecting, it's watching food grow. I heard a really funny story back in school. This woman has a herb farm, and she'll bring school buses out. Well, the kids get off the school bus and they look at the cows and they say, oh, I wonder what kind of eggs they lay. I mean, it's a disconnect, right? People just, meat comes wrapped in a plastic, and, you know, veggies are on the shelf. Well, connecting people to the growing, I just think could be so empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So a big part of your work is being an acupuncturist. So what are the core key focuses that you work on, and can you give us any examples?
My daughter and I were walking yesterday along a creek, and we were talking about the flow versus, you know, stuck. Right now there's so much water moving, it's beautiful. And I was saying, in Chinese medicine, the stuckness is what causes stagnation, eventually disease. And so a big focus is to keep qi flowing, keep movement happening. So that's why I love the hands-on work. If you can calm the body and calm the nervous system, things will flow better. That rest and digest. I want to add healing, or, you know, repair to that parasympathetic nervous system. So a lot of my work and talking with people is in supporting calming the nervous system, really listening to the body. And sometimes that's something that I'll say, just come in and let me get my hands on you, and I'll be able to have more information from feeling the pulses, from seeing how the body responds to the needles and touch. So that's one of the starting places and biggest focuses. Another is that translation sort of, so they'll come in, they don't feel well, the labs look fine. Often that's a very surface level lab work. And I want to look with a more fine-tooth comb, more of a functional medicine approach that might be trademarked, a more comprehensive, in-depth look, because my values, the reference range, we often joke, maybe you don't want to be average with over here, the rest of America. Like if it's, 70%, I think it's a huge number, have a metabolic disorder, have a blood sugar dysregulation. Well, then I don't want to be in the normal group. It's not normal, it's regular or common. We want to have it finer tuned, right? So I think it's like 12% of Americans are actually metabolically healthy. That's part of why we're getting nailed by COVID so bad, because it exaggerates inflammation that's already there. So if you go into it inflamed. So a lot of it is that educating people and trying to calm the nervous system and get them more to that gentle state of repair. So connecting the dots is a big part, helping people understand how this is connected to that. And then also giving them the tools to change it. And I'm a little funny as a doctor that way, because some doctors will tell you what to do. I want to collaborate because I want to get to the point where you learn it, you know it. I'll tell people I'm like training wheels, and then eventually my patients graduate and they've got it. They'll check in or we can do maintenance, but it's been put back in their hands, right?
Yeah, that's more important, because
so empowering.
You keep depending on external things all the time and not empowering yourself to take control is not a good position to be in most of the time.
Yeah, we've really gotten into this pill for an ill, just make the symptoms go away. And actually, what if we turn that all on its head and the symptoms were the information, they are the information about what's out of balance. And rather than suppressing them, I often joke, like if you take the batteries out of the smoke alarm, it doesn't mean there's not a fire.
Yeah.
What if we drop in and say, well, how is your body what's it trying to get our attention?
Yes.
It's a whole different conversation.
Absolutely. So within that, what would you say your career highlights have been?
Well, my first answer was they're yet to come. There's so much.
But I mean, is there anything within what you've been doing that really stands out?
Yeah, well, I've been practicing for 14 years. And so some of those cases are those ones where people have really gotten the hang of it and graduated. And I love that and really have felt empowered. And then I was actually thinking of a unique sort of a story. I don't do a lot of death doula work, but I have. And so going over to the house call, seeing the primary patient, right, who's got terminal cancer, and helping him and having conversation. And then I would give the wife also some acupuncture and help and support her, because we have to support the caretakers as well. And then I would visit with the dog and support him, because he's also, carrying this. And so we snuggle and I'd pet him and comfort him and just try to talk super matter of fact with each of them, right? This gentleman was kind of holding out hope, and I was trying to say, like, look, death is not the worst thing. I do think it's probably happening sooner. Let's talk about it matter of fact, right? Because we're so afraid to talk about it. And then I shared that story with another friend, a practitioner, and they were like, I could never get so involved. I don't know how you get so involved. And I thought,
yeah, and also it takes a lot of energy.
It does, but it's such a deep medicine. It's so potent. It's such a blessing, I feel. It's such a deep medicine. And that gentleman ended up passing fairly quickly, peacefully. Before, he was really nervous about a lot of suffering at the end. He skipped that, like that's a beautiful death, I think.
Yeah.
But what a different way to talk about it, because we're not even supposed to talk about death. So how to really look at quality instead of quantity, and how to put people really back in that, in their driver's seat for health is one of the things I really love. And then lately it's been a lot of, like we talked about, the gut healing and gut health. So really getting into the soil, we're actually kind of back to that garden analogy. And when we really address the soil and the garden and digestion, I've got a couple of patients who are doing so well that I'm getting referrals because they look good. People are like,
Wow,
you look
amazing.
great. What are you doing? And they're slowing aging. I mean, we're just trying to slow aging and optimize vitality. And it really comes from understanding how what we eat, what we think, what we do impacts how we feel. And you can start anywhere of those places, but it's absolutely on us. There is no magic pill that's going to fix it all, because we're here to learn. We're here to learn. We're here to be in our body. We're here to experience. So it's like putting it back in people's hands. That's really been so exciting for me and so fun, and very, some people are interested and some are not. And that's how I know who's a patient, who's someone to work with or not. I'm not for everybody. That's okay. But the people that really are, healthy and want to be healthier, or they're fed up and they want to know more, those are my people. And we have so much fun. I could just talk medicine and anatomy and physiology probably all day, because I love it. I love learning about it. I love teaching about it. And I love those aha moments when people connect it, because then they have the power, to make a different choice, or to make, have the cake. Go ahead, have the cake. And also maybe have some extra salad tomorrow, or soup, or,
Exactly.
Not rigid, but informed makes such a difference.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So we've spoken about obviously being sick, but very often after being sick, especially during the flu season, there's always an after effect lingering that, people have, or as they call it for COVID, long haul, but just long haul flu, long haul, whatever.
Yeah, long haul's been around a long time. It's just that, that dysregulation that's happened in the system, or, even in COVID.
So can you share with us how people could help cleanse or heal or rebuild their immunity from that?
I have to say, one of it is that going into it, how are you going to go into it will make a difference how you come out of it. So keeping that in mind ahead of time, like you can start managing your blood sugar today, and that will make a difference. And also, I do think about it like a combustion or house cleaning process, right? So there's cellular debris, things get out of balance. I read a fascinating article, it was probably PubMed, about how in COVID infection, it changes the bacteria in the gut. That was mind-blowing. It makes sense, but I hadn't really thought about that. And it shifts what the biome is doing to help the virus instead of the human. That's fascinating. So then it suggests to me that the repair and recovery process, it's the same thing, the same as I said for the other, but really focusing on the gut healing, supporting, nourishing, and cleansing the system. So we don't just go back to our cheeseburgers and milkshakes. We still need to keep a clean diet and really be intentional about the food we put in. There's probably going to be a greater need for more of that restorative support. So that might be the hydrotherapy, the hot cold, walking, movement. There's all these natural processes that help the body work better. We need oxygen, we need movement, we need clean water, we need hugs.
Hugs are super healing.
Super healing. And connection. And so I think an important part, because we never really talked about long haul, and it used to even be kind of looked down upon, like, oh, you're malingering, or, oh, just get over it. So in a weird way, it's actually good that it's gotten a little more attention, as unfortunately, as more people have experienced it, they're saying, oh, this is real. Yes, it's real. Yes, it deserves our compassion and empathy, and it deserves time, right? It's not, oh, I ran out of sick days. I mean, what a sick society. Oh, you're allowed to be sick for 2 weeks a year, but that's all. Well, I mean, hopefully you're not sick 2 weeks a year, but like if you are, and if you need 5 more days to recover, why are you penalized for that? How do we allow space for people to have the time to recover? I do think it takes extra support. In a way, it's an indicator of a system that was already taxed, and then we added this other strain. And so, I mean, best is to have a qualified practitioner who can help with targeted supplements, things like that. But certainly the adaptogen herbs that we love so much, the rhodiolas, the ginsengs, rosemary, ginkgo, these longevity herbs, these long-standing herbs, antioxidants are going to help us clean up. And then the movement, that's the lymphatic flow with like the alternating hot, cold, walking. I think that's an interesting one that happens is people get sick and they just kind of like wilt. I get it. But actually, especially right now, especially with the COVID and different things, I think it's really essential to get outside, open the windows.
100%. Open the windows and also keep your environment clean.
Yes,
maybe
you have to get out there, move.
When we were younger, we used to have humidifiers. So, I'm not saying necessarily humidifiers, but you do get those mechanisms which help clean the air. So,
yes.
So things like that I think are important.
Diffusers with essential oil.
Yeah, that's what I mean, diffusers.
Yeah, it can be so potent. Or we're back to rosemary again. If you boil some water, throw the rosemary in, and you can take it off the heat. You're not boiling the rosemary, but the steam will, fill. You can make a home humidifier that way. And I feel more comfortable with people who are just experimenting to start with the plant instead of the essential oil, because essential oils are so concentrated. But you throw a handful of thyme, eucalyptus, rosemary in a pot of water that's just boiled, it's going to fill the air. You're going to breathe in these antioxidants and these essential oils and aromatherapy. And it's a very simple, affordable, accessible, not scary thing that can help so much. So that's what we're looking for, is tools that can feel comfortable. And then as people start to get more interested, this is what I love about herbalism, the plants really want to help us. I really believe they do. So as soon as we start to be curious, information starts to come our way, or we start to notice new plants in the yard. Or one joke is the things will start to grow around us that we need. Okay. It's wonderful. So being open to that and being curious, I think, is also going to be super helpful.
So what is your biggest vision in helping to change the current narrative in terms of health and wellness?
I'm really excited about getting more education out there, because it's one of the things I love so much, and I've been doing well one-to-one. So that's what I'm working on right now, is getting organized and developing out a platform for more group educating, and then also hopefully group directed, what do people want to learn about? And then I would love to teach a course on it, because I think that self-referenced knowing is super empowering. And then little did I know that this is actually apparently a rebellion against the current system, because they don't want people to know. So that makes me want to help teach people even more. Yes. So educating, oh my gosh, it would look so different, right? To have people say, oh, well, I've noticed, my blood sugar's up more, so I'm going to change this and I'm going to exercise like that. And then it's in that central locus of control. People are in charge of their own health. So I would love to teach more basics. I really feel like right now, if people understood how the immune system works, more than just antibody. We talk about antibodies a lot, but there's T cells. The B cells make the antibodies. There's memory cells. There's just these cool, big eaters that go around and gobble stuff up. There's so much dynamic happening. And I think if people knew more about it, they might not be as scared. They recognize that they had a defense, and then how to support and care for that defense, instead of people are really afraid. So I want to know how to relieve that fear, right? Empower people instead of disempower or separating them. So that idea of a pill for an ill, or, oh, I have a fever, I'll just take a fever suppressor. There's almost this, we've gotten to sort of a childish dependence. Someone has to tell me what to do. And I sometimes frustrate patients, because I'm not necessarily going to tell them what to do. I'm going to give them the information. It's on them to do it or not do it. And so I'm still working on how to not overwhelm people with information, because I get very excited. Yes. I want to share a lot, and I'm learning on how to trim it down. So for instance, one program I want to run soon is the Cultivating Calm, just understanding how what we eat affects our mind and how we feel, and then how we can affect and improve that. I think that's a real starting place, because if we aren't in a calm state, then we can't think critically. We just are agitated. So if we can get everybody to calm a little bit more, I think we'll be on the way to more health for everyone.
Absolutely. So that leads me to the final question. What are the 3 key pieces of advice you would give to our audience in terms of health and wellness? And how would you like to be remembered, or what legacy would you like to leave?
I love this question. Yeah, one of the founding principles of naturopathy, and it's right there in the word, is that nature heals if we can get out of the way, if we can give it time and space. And we are in and of nature. So I really, really wish we could reconnect that for people. The second one, connection heals. And I think that's one of the biggest traumas right now, for me personally, is this divide. Everybody's got divided so many different ways, especially in the US, right? They're divided by like this side.
Globally, I mean, this is
and it's really, it's really come. And whenever we're divided, then we're looking down on someone or we're judging someone, and that's harm. So how to connect? And so that's why I like the idea of finding calm. And this is kind of like meta practice. First, we cultivate that love here, and then we can broadcast and share that love out. We need more connection. And
100%.
It's really what's missing, and I think causing the most harm right now. So find your people, reach out and connect. Part of what's been going on here, especially on the West Coast, I've reached out to doctor friends who I've, known and loved, but haven't talked to maybe in 5 years or 10 years, and reached out. How are you doing? Can we talk? Can we connect? And it's been remarkable for me. And it's been so healing to remember that I'm not alone and to connect with other folks. And then we can fortify, and then we can also share that out. So I can share the work they're doing with my patients, and they can share the work I'm doing with their patients. And that connecting is really going to make a difference. And so that's what I really want to develop, a connection place and a group medicine place. It doesn't have to be mine. There's lots of opportunities, but for people to seek out these connection opportunities, that's really going to be a really important medicine to pull us through this. This is my vision for the future, is one that is more connected and loving and kind. We have to get there. I want to. We need to.
I mean, I think we will. I think that this is, no one said this process was going to be fun, but I think that the reason a lot of these things are coming to the surface is that we can get rid of old systems, old processes, old conditionings, indoctrinations of certain systems, because I do think that we were on a slippery slope, and people just become passive and absorb whatever the ads or whatever are telling us, but it's not actually necessarily the truth, and it's not necessarily the reality of what we should actually be doing. So
it's not sustainable. There's been a lot of marketing against health, basically, in the name of health, but against health. So we need to get our knowing so we can discern what's true and not, and then connect with other people and help support each other. And then the third one is, and I say it often, and I'm going to keep saying it, your health is in your hands. It's really up to each of us individually. And that's gotten turned around a little bit in a weird way. So we're not supposed to talk about people making unhealthy choices, but I think we kind of need to talk about the soda and talk about the sugar and be realistic about it, because you can't avoid it. Avoiding it won't make it go away. And like you said, it's a slippery slope. I mean, the metabolic state of the US, and then we export this lifestyle. And whenever McDonald's pops up in other countries, so does more obesity and sickness, right? And when Pepsi gets there, then the cavities, and I mean, we can do better. We absolutely can do better. So reminding people, your health really is in your hands, and that's a good thing. Not an overwhelming, scary thing, but a good opportunity, I think could really
change. And it's good to empower yourself. It's the same like when someone gets a diagnosis, it's like, are you going to take the first doctor's opinion, or are you going to get maybe 4 or 5 opinions and then come to a decision? And I think that's where people give too much power to something else, and kind of believing in something that may not even necessarily even be there because they can't see it.
Right. And I think that's the important part, is that powering and disempowering. And people have come away from, or they've stayed really immature, right? Oh, just tell me what to do, or, oh, just fix it for me. Or if everybody just did whatever, and it's juvenile, and we need to mature into that personal responsibility I need to walk and exercise so that I can be more level-headed, so I can raise my kids from a more calm place, right?
Yeah.
I need to make a choice how I'm going to care for myself so I can show up and care for them as present as possible. It's on me. No one can do it for me. And that's actually really empowering. And I think that's what I would like to remind people and inspire them, and then help them feel grounded on their 2 feet. And that's how we're going to change the picture here. So I do think there's a really important awakening and seeing what is true and what is not. I think there's going to be, I'm already feeling it, a grieving and a mourning what was lost. There's going to be anger. Those are all healthy responses. How do we keep moving through those? So staying grounded, and that goes back to the connection, and that goes back to nature. That's why these were my 3 favorite. Just getting outside. I had one patient and I said, just take your gloves off while you're gardening. I just wanted her to contact the soil. Or we were hiking by a waterfall yesterday. I mean, just the beauty and the sound and I'm sure there were ions, it's so restorative and it's right there. I mean, it blows my mind because I am outside every day, but I think there's people that don't go outside really. They might never take their shoes off, might never hug a tree. And that disconnection is not natural, and we won't feel fed. I mean, there's an essential connection with nature that we need. So how to restore that is I'm really curious about.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
And then, so how would you like to be remembered?
Yeah, well, for being honest and being of integrity, for helping people feel empowered in their health. I really want to help make that tangible and more accessible to anyone. So there's a little ebook I'm writing with my foundations of health. So that's coming out soon. And then anyone listening to the podcast, if you go to drjenclemons.com, that'll take you to my website. And I'm going to post a little preview chapter about sleep. And that's really what I want to move into, is how to educate and reach more people, because the work I do one-to-one helps, but I can't help but think if I could reach more people and teach them these same foundations, I could help more people. And that could help raise the health for everyone. I especially love working with families and with other healers, because teachers and nurses, if I help them, I'm helping everyone they help. I love that.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
So if people want to connect with you, what are the best platforms to do so?
So the website, drjenclemons.com, it's going to route you to my Luck Dragon Medicine, and you can read more about me and what I do. There's some recipes and blog posts there. So that also has my direct connection. You go to the contact page if people want to email. On Instagram, also Dr. Jen Clemons. And then on Telegram, I think it's just Dr. Jen. I'll have to go back and look. There should be a link on the Instagram to get to the Telegram.
Okay.
Yeah, if people want to find me that way.
Well, thank you so much. And hopefully we can have you back in the future to see where you are on your journey. And thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, thanks so much for the opportunity, Karen. I hope even if just one person gets some help from this, that's a job well done. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Great. Thank you. Have a good day.